Hey everyone, Chandler Bolt, your CEO and founder of Self-Publishing School, and you are in for a treat today. All right, so first off, if you'll just comment in the chat and let me know that you can hear me and see us. Also, let me know where you're tuning in from. We're gonna get kicked off in just a minute. We've got a packed house today. This is awesome. So you should see me and you should see your host for today, Marcy Pusey. And you should see a title slide now, which this is what we're going to be talking about. How to tell the story kids will love to read and parents will be proud to buy without compromising on quality. Claudia in the house. G. Russell, how are you? Martin, Ayula, Osman or Osman. We've got Diana in Washington. We've got somebody in Atlanta. C. Shay. How are you? We got Jennifer in Toronto. We've got Martin in the UK. Stephanie, how are you? Raul. We've got Sam in Memphis, Tennessee. We got more Canadians. We've got somebody in New York City, San Diego, Huntsville, Alabama, Scotland. That's awesome.
I'm not very far.
We've got Kathy in Indiana, Stephanie in Dallas. Awesome. All over the map. Hey, I'm in California and Marcy is in Germany. So you're in for a treat. I'll cut straight to it. Marcy is amazing. She's your host for today. Also the creator of the Children's Book School. So she's been helping, gosh, a lot of people, a lot of people over the last many years with Self-Publishing School, write and publish children's books, high quality children's books. That sell well and also that truly make an impact to the lives of kids and to the lives of parents. So she's coached hundreds of students in Self-Publishing School and thousands of coaching calls. So everything she's teaching here today is learned from being in the trenches, doing it herself, but also from working with our students throughout the process. She's a 2-time TEDx speaker and genre diverse author. So has written nonfiction, she's written memoirs, she's just launched her fiction book this past week, multiple children's books, just a wealth of information and knowledge. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Marcy, and you're in for a treat here today.
Thank you, Chandler. And thank you everyone for coming. It's so exciting. I love seeing where all of you are tuning in from. It's amazing how we can be so virtual and global all at the same time. So welcome. You might be looking at this list saying, oh my gosh, how can I write for children? Like, I don't have all these letters. I don't even know what some of this means. And what I want you to know is I didn't start there. I actually started somewhere around there. And you know, even really up to about 5 years ago, I had dozens of finished books with no way for kids to read them. I had spent 7 years in the traditional publishing industry for children's writers. That was 7 years of money invested in conferences and workshops and critique groups and traveling and then all the time and the energy with very little to show for it. Hundreds of rejections from editors and agents. You hear authors talk about that all the time, like it's real. If you even get a response, I feel like getting a rejection letter is actually high praise because often it's just silence. I watched years go by, always hearing this mantra within the industry that the one who gets published is the one who doesn't quit. And I'll come back to that because there's truth, but also not. And I secretly had no confidence in myself. I thought maybe I'm just not good enough. 7 years of pouring in, not quitting, still not seeing the results I wanted. And I was about to throw in the towel. So what changed? What got me from 5 years ago having all these unfinished books, having little confidence in myself, nobody to read the books, to everything Chandler said at the start? Well, I was at a conference in Europe, in Paris. It was a Europolitan conference with the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. If you plan to write for children, they are a highly recommended resource and society for us, for illustrators and for writers. So I was there at a conference 7 years into this journey, and I workshopped one of my books to agents who were hearing them anonymously and giving immediate feedback. So my book, Turcules, gets workshopped, but they don't know who it's come from. My book gets read the furthest. They have the least amount of things to say negative. In fact, the only thing was like, why did he get an itch? It's random. I don't get it. But they continue to use my story as the model example of how to write a good quality book for all of the other books that were read after. Yet, they still didn't choose to represent me, and they couldn't really explain why. So at the end of that conference, I thought, oh my goodness, it's not even about being a good, high quality writer that can be the model example to other writers. It's who you know and their emotional connection to the things you're writing about, or the animals. She just didn't care about wild turkeys, right? So that was the kind of the hang up there. She just didn't get them or care about them. So I left really, really discouraged. And what I learned was that I needed to overcome myself. And what is cool about that, and what's cool about having Chandler here, is that he was a huge piece of that for me. Because at that 7-year point, when I'm feeling like I need to throw in the towel, but I feel like that's a betrayal of who I am and who I was made to be, to not write. I feel designed for that. And yet I can't get past the people in the middle. So here comes Chandler launching his brand new program at the time, Self-Publishing School. It was only for adult nonfiction writers. And long story short, I jumped in praying that it wasn't a scam. I'm so happy to tell you it's not, and it wasn't. But I joined a school for adult nonfiction writers as a children's fiction writer because I was so desperate to see, do I have it in me? If I have the tools, if someone will believe in me and help me, can I do this? And I didn't know. So really I was borrowing Chandler's belief in me, and his belief was simply through giving me the tools that I needed. So I joined and I learned I had a lot to do to overcome myself. I had to put a pause on some writing and work on my belief system. And it was in that process of joining and borrowing Chandler's belief and taking a pause to sort of evaluate who am I and what does this mean for me, that I uncovered why authors really don't get published. And it's not what they were telling me in the traditional publishing industry. So why do so many children's authors actually fail? This is what I learned. Because they don't conquer their 6 peaks. Many authors just don't understand story fundamentals. And today we're going to talk about those fundamentals so that when you leave, you can understand what they are so you can get a start. You know, as I go through these peaks, I would love it if you would drop down in the comments which one has been a hindrance for you, or maybe there's more than one. Let us know which one. I'll point these out to you as I go too. Like, I understood story fundamentals. That's why I was being the recommended storyteller at this workshop and event. And I had the discipline, but some people don't, right? I've had actually one author say, like, I'm not sacrificing anything else for this book. I just want it to happen. And I thought, well, that's why your book's not going to get published. We have to do the hustle and keep working at it. Some people lack the discipline. Some, like me, the confidence. Maybe I had it at some point real high, and then it dropped real low with all the rejections and with realizing how the industry works. And then I gained some when Chandler believed in me and began to give me tools, even if it was not the genre I intended to write in. He led me to where I am today because he believed in me and gave me the tools. For some people, it's a belief that there's no time. For some, it's not having the support, no community. If you've tried writing at all, you've probably found quickly how isolating it can be, how the people around you don't really get it. They might applaud you, way to go, or like, who are you to write a book? But it's really hard to find other people doing it and find good community with them. Or you just don't know the process, right? So I had discipline, I'd made the time, confidence shaky, I had the fundamentals, I didn't have the support, and I did not know the process. That was where I was stuck. If you relate to any of these, I would love it if you would drop it below and say, what has been your hindrance? What is in the way? Or what's something maybe even that you've overcome? You know, where are you in this process? Drop that below, and I'll keep going. But Chandler, as those come in, let me know, because I'd love to see just an idea of where we are today together.
Yeah, so, and I already see some coming in. We see Phyllis says no time. Shruti says no confidence. Shay says the process and the confidence, and probably some of the fundamentals. Sam says don't have enough time or know the process. And we've got a bunch more coming in right now. We want to hear from everyone. So if you're distracted right now, you're not paying attention, every single person, we want to hear from you in the chat.
Yeah.
Let us know which one you relate to. We see all of the above, no time, don't know the process. This is awesome. Lots going on.
Totally get it. And Chandler gets it too. Like, really, he launched Self-Publishing School and he can tell his own story, but in part because he had to learn the process and wanted to share what he learned, because he saw that the traditional industry really wasn't letting people in. They were being a middle ground. And you know what? I think there's a place for them. We'll get there. You see here, lesson 1, you don't need a traditional publisher to write and sell your book. Some people choose that route, and I think it's a path for some. But we're going to talk about the differences and be honest. I'm connected to both. I'm not submitting anymore, but I'm still good friends with a lot of people in that industry industry, agents, editors, people there. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the storytelling formula that anyone can follow to write a great story. And then lesson 3, this one, I always feel a little mean saying this, but it's real. And I think love and kindness with each other is being real about the things and saying sometimes the hard stuff. So you're actually hurting our future and our kids by not putting your book out there. So when you think of these mountain peaks that you guys are dropping in, time and confidence and tools or fundamentals, these are all barriers that get in the way of really empowering kids and raising up kids with stories they can resonate with so that they improve our future and they improve our today. And so we're going to talk about how to let your motivation and the desire for impact drive you beyond those peaks and how you can have the tools to overcome each one of those, just as I've done and many others have done with us. All right, lesson 1, you don't need a traditional publisher to write and sell your book. The myth that I believed too is that publishing traditionally is the way to make money and maybe the only way to make money. I know that having sort of been raised up in the traditional industry, I heard a lot of things about people who self-publish or about the benefits of being with a traditional publisher. And now that I've had an experience with both, I realize how long I was living in a box. And that comes to this. The least helpful thing I ever did as a writer was believe that myth. It locked me inside of a box and it restricted my access to getting my stories out into the world. The truth is that self-publishing gives you the path to have kids reading your books and building your business faster. So this is what life outside the box has meant for me. And again, Chandler was such a crucial part of that. Chandler, thank you. I know I've told you that before, but such a crucial part of helping me to see that there was life outside of the box. So I've actually learned that I make more money per book sale than my traditionally counterparts have, traditionally published counterparts. I've got a lot of friends there who are making pennies on the book, if anything. I've got one friend who published 3 books, and it took 2 entire years before she got a first royalty check. And it was enough to go get a meal at McDonald's, so she ended up just framing it because she was so excited she finally got a check. She had gotten an advance, but it wasn't that large. I have another friend that, because there's loopholes in her contract, has never made a royalty penny on her book. So she also got a small advance, but then again, all the loopholes, they keep coming with reasons for why she hasn't earned a royalty yet. So that's pretty common that they're just making pennies on the book. Now, because I have so much creative control over my journey, I'm able to make dollars per book sale. And even more if I'm at a live event and I'm selling my books in live person where Barnes & Noble or Amazon is not taking a cut. I get to maintain creative control, and not everyone wants this. So if you're hearing, I want to maintain creative control, then this is the path for you. If you're like, no, I want someone else to make all the decisions, the title of the book, the artwork of the book, all of it, the size, how everything will look like, I just want to write it and then have someone else control every element of it, then that might be a traditional path for you. But I like to have control. I like to think through the title. I want to make sure it's engaging. I want to make sure that the artwork is exactly what I want for my story. Because that's the thing with the traditional industry is they have in-house illustrators that they've hired and have on hand, and they only will use those artists. And a lot of authors don't even see their book illustrated until it's about to go to print or until it's in print. So you don't get that control. And I love it. I love the partnership I get with my illustrators. I also get to decide if it ever goes out of print or not. I get to make that decision. With a traditional publisher, if your book isn't selling at the rate they want it to, they'll pull it out of print and your book is no longer published, no longer available. People can only buy the copies that currently exist. I get to own the timeline. So when I go to publish a book, I can do it easily in 3 months, easily. Less if I have a really quick illustrator, longer if I'm, being flexible or whatnot, but 3 months, no problem. In the traditional industry, it's about 1.5 to 2 years from the point of being acquired. So I told you I spent 7 years trying to get acquired. It would have been another 1.5, 2 years on top of that from the point of being acquired by a traditional publisher. Now, if in that 1.5 and 2 years, the industry changes, the trends change, the house goes under and is bought out by another publisher, you lose your deal in the middle and you start all over. And I've had friends where that's happened too. So when I'm working on my own process, my own journey with my book and self-publishing, that's never going to happen. And you know what? Readers don't care anymore where a good book comes from. I've never had a reader say, oh man, your book was good, but it's self-published, so I'm not going to read it or whatnot. Never. I get fan mail, letters, pictures. People will send me pictures of their kids reading the book, and no one has ever questioned, because we write high quality, engaging stories, and that's what they care about. The artwork, the story itself, and does it bring value to the family? And the previous benefits are less important, and I would even say less true. So you might hear people say, well, traditional publisher is going to do my marketing for me. No, they're really not. They're doing less and less marketing. And no one is going to market your book as well or as good as you anyway, because it's your story and it's something you're passionate about. The other piece is now they're starting to choose authors based on their social media platform. So not even how good is your book, but, oh, you have 100,000 followers? Awesome. You'll be able to market your own book. It'll probably sell. We'll get our cut. There we go. So they're not offering the same kinds of benefits, and we get to keep the control. So here's the truth. Children's books can make money. There are ways to jumpstart your career. We're going to talk about those today. And you don't have to be Jane Yolen or Judy Blume to sell. You just have to tell a great story. I want to give an example here. So, some of us choose to write, and I'd love you also, as I give these examples, drop in the comments which one's you. Some people want to write for children because they want to make an impact. Maybe you saw my first TED Talk on how story empowers kids and can impact our future and what it does neurologically to our brains. And you're like, yes, I want to be someone who gives that to kids and gives that to the world. So if you're impact, drop down impact. Now, you might find yourself in a few different places, but if you're like, no, man, it's impact driven, drop it there. For some people, it's a bucket list or a legacy piece. Man, I want something to outlive me. I want something to leave behind for my kids that they can be proud of. It's a story. I've got some authors who are writing their own life stories in children's books and in other genres to leave that behind. And for others, it's, man, I want to be a career author. I'm trying to build a business, and I want to write and live off of that income. So if you see yourself in there or a blend of it, drop that down. I'd love to know where you are. This is Connie. She's one of our self-publishing school students, and I'm not going to read this to you, but it was so powerful to me, and it's such an example of what some of our writers are doing and what can be done. So she actually lives in Tanzania, and she works with a school there, and she supports 225 kids in this school. And she realized that they weren't getting meals daily even. And she wanted to be able to provide for them 2 meals a day, but she knew she couldn't just do that out of her own income. I mean, she's sort of like a nonprofit situation where people send in donations and she's got to rely on that. So she thought, what can I do? So she decided to write books based in Africa and sell them and try to raise money to be able to feed the kids. And so she had a goal, and within 10 days, she sold 700 books, 600 books, raised $10,000, and was able to feed those 225 kids 2 meals a day for the rest of the year. Now, the government comes along and says, why are you doing this? These kids are nothing. Like, why would you waste your time and money on trash, essentially? And she's like, these kids are not trash. In fact, I'm going to show you what can happen when we care for kids and when we feed them, all because of her books, right? So at that point, when kids get to 7th grade, if they get to 7th grade, they have to take national exams. And if they pass those exams, they can get into continued education. Most kids don't even get to 7th grade, let alone pass national exams. Well, that year, after she sold all those books and fed all those kids, every single kid passed their national exams and got into further education, into great options for big high schools. It's such an example to the nation of Tanzania who is saying, why do you care? And she gets to show them, all because she said, I'm going to sell these books so that I can do something for people. That's an example, I would say, of impact and money, right? Like, she's not trying to live on that money, but she raised $10,000 with her books. And with that money was able to do such impactful work. It's powerful and it's amazing. Okay, Chandler, what are some people saying? Why are they wanting to write for kids?
Yeah, so many great responses here. We've got Claudia says impact and career author. Mary says start a children's book series.
Yeah.
We've got, let's see, we've got a bunch of folks saying impact. Let's see, they're scrolling through here. I see Hazel says impact on children and parents for the welfare of their animal pets. Sean says I want to have fun writing with my kids as a career. I see Hillary says, I want to help. Oh, shoot, they're going in faster than me. I want to help children hold on to their inner self and stay in their hearts, which is awesome. Stephanie says, mine is impact. I started telling my kids stories in the NICU. At 3, they are engrossed in reading. Every night, they're listening to my stories. That's a good one to end on. That's just amazing.
Yeah. That's amazing. It is. I love it. I'm a mom as well. And so my kids have sort of been raised a little bit as characters in my stories, according to Corbin. Might feature my younger 2 kids. And it's funny, they're so over it now, but they're writing their own books. It's just so normalized that you can write and publish books that they've been writing their own, various series written together. And it's so cool to see how, as writers, we can actually impact our whole family and show them what's possible. I didn't have someone to do that for me, but I get to do that now for my kids. And it sounds like some of you are doing that for your kids already. So not only are you impacting the kids you're writing for, but you're actually shining in a particular way to the people around you that you love and showing them possibility. It's so great. Okay, I'm going to get off on that. So back to lesson 2, the storytelling formula that anyone can follow to write a great story. What I want for you, I'm going to go quickly because there's a few places where we go into great detail on our website, our blog, our podcast, even places where we get deeper into the weeds here. But what I'm hoping is that you'll have a really basic understanding of how to get started by the time we're done with this. And we're going to talk about storytelling in the art form and in the text, because you need both, specifically in a children's picture book, to do the storytelling. So what do top sellers have in common? They have a great story, but let's define great, because I have a history and behavioral analysis and I always want definitions. So great means that the book is emotional or thought-provoking. It makes the reader feel something or think something differently. Consider a movie or a book you've read or something that has stuck with you negatively or positively. When I share this, I immediately think of a movie that I abhorred because it made me feel stuff, right? So, but I remember, even negative or positive, that it created a feeling in me, and that's what makes it stick with us. That triggers the brain to respond and light up in a really unique way. And so when we write a book that can make people feel things or think differently, you've done a good job. It has multiple layers of meaning. It's a book that doesn't patronize children or dumb down the content. We give them just a little bit to reach for, to get their critical brains engaged and realizing that they can think for themselves and make decisions and resonate with our characters. It gives them new insights, various opportunities to respond to different situations, and we get to challenge the reader's thinking and feelings. We get to appeal to the children and the child within their adults. Picture books specifically are read aloud books. So there's often adults buying the books and reading the books, and we need to engage them just as much as the child. So if you're able to write in such a way that you can entertain both at the same time, that is a great book. It has that read it again quality. You know, when the kid is at bedtime saying, read it again, and you're so tired, you just want to not read it again. But it's the kind of book that they just want to hear over and over and over, and that you might be willing to read again because it's not that bad, right? Even at bedtime when you're exhausted. And it has that perfect symbiosis of storytelling with the art and the text, which I'm going to get into in just a little bit here. But I want to pause real quick because I know some of you have come here like, I'm checking out children's books, so I've already written adult nonfiction like I did, or I have an adult nonfiction idea, but I don't know, could it do something for kids? And I'm just going to pause here and kind of go on a little brief intentional tangent to give you some examples of why this is important. Because if you have been thinking in the way of adults, well, imagine if we could give that same message to kids now. If we could raise them up with the messages we're trying to get to adults in their pain today, or in wherever their lack is today. Like, what if we could start sooner with kids? And so I'm going to show you just real quick some examples of how that's been done, because regardless, whether you're starting with children or you're starting with adults, the ultimate issue is we need these messages at every stage of life. Messages of our worth and our value and how to overcome hard things and believe in ourselves and believe others. Like, these are universal messages that we need at all ages. And so we can do it. We can do both. This is one of our SPS authors, Christina. She started with Hope Strong, navigating the emotions of your infertility journey, overcoming the pain, and thriving with hope. That's how she joined us. That's what she wanted to do. Well, she joined a 7-day challenge with me on how to get a children's book draft written and ready for an editor in 7 days. And this is something we teach in our course, which I'm so excited about. So she went through that challenge and she came out with this book, which is M Baby Elio. It's a children's book that's a story for children who've been born through fertility treatments. So now kids like her own have a story where their journey, their birth journey is reflected, and they can share that with friends and family or schoolmates. And then other people can say, wow, this is another way that people can be born born, can come to life. And it's amazing. And so the books will end up selling each other, right? The families will come and say, oh man, this is oh, look, there's one for kids too. And they'll get that one. Or they'll come to the kids book. Oh man, she's also written one for adults, and they'll get that. So there's multifacets, right? You're getting to share your message with all of the whole family, but then they also sell each other for that reason. This is an example of mine. I joined and I wrote for children, but I was like, well, I just joined an adult nonfiction school. I guess I should write an adult nonfiction book. So I wrote Reclaiming Hope based on foster care and adopted children. I was in the thick of it as an adoptive mom. I had been fostering. Chandler says, write what's easy, what you're excited about, and what you can do quickly. So I knocked it out 88 days after I joined. It was a bestseller on Amazon, just like Chandler said it would be if I did what he said. And I did. And so that became my first published book outside of the traditional industry. And I followed that up with these other two. So Speranza Sweater is the journey of a child going through foster care. And then Parenting Children of Trauma is sort of a follow-up. These three books sell each other all the time. Like if I market one, it really markets all three for the same reason that I talked about in the last one. And this is another one of our coaches at Self-Publishing School, Elaine. And she recently launched her children's book, I'm Not Weird. So she's got her adult nonfiction, Don't Be Weird, Stories and Strategies to Lead Everyone to Jesus Anytime and Anywhere. And then she thought, you know what, kids are trying to share their faith too and understand that experience. And so she translated that down to a children's book, and people are loving it. So I hope this gives you an example of how you can go from either direction, right? Like I've got this message for kids. What would it look like to bring that up to an adult level or vice versa? All right, so back on the original track. Myth 2, good storytellers are born and not made. I would love you to drop down below, just like, that's me, raise your hand if you feel like, you know, I'm not sure I'm cut out for this. I really think people are born with a certain kind of gift or skill. And so maybe I'm thinking about it, but I'm just gonna learn that I'm no good and it's not really me. Here are people we might consider born storytellers to give you an idea, right? Jimmy Kimmel, he just has a name, like, you know, his name is going to sell his book. So he's not necessarily born a storyteller, but he was born and rose up into a name that any publisher will take. They might even assign a ghostwriter to actually write the book, and they'll put his name on it and it will sell, right? So we just think, well, I don't have that name. I don't have Barack Obama's name. I've never been a president. Same thing, right? I think he actually wrote this book, but at the end of the day, it's selling because Barack Obama is the name on it, right? We've got Madonna, same kind of situation. And then we've got Jane Yolen. Okay, she's a break from the other three. She's actually written over 365 books across genres. You could read one book of hers every single day of the year and still not get through every book she's written. And I'll tell you what, she still says sometimes like, oh, today I autographed someone's book, or they asked me for my opinion on something, or I took a picture with a fan. Today I feel like an author. So like, okay, if Jane Yolen doesn't feel like an author every single day of her life, then none of us will, but we just keep going because we're not born storytellers. It's something that we invest in. Anyone can write a great story if they understand the fundamentals. And that's what you're going to understand right now in the next 5 minutes. So storytelling with words, we're going to start with the text. All great children's stories have story structure and or memorable characters. You've got Winnie the Pooh, Fancy Nancy. If you've been around the industry, you know these things. Fancy Nancy, doesn't even matter what she's doing. She's such a memorable character that you just know her. Winnie the Pooh also, right? Maybe you could recall a few things that have happened in stories you've read or watched, but at the end of the day, you just know who he is because he's so memorable. Here are the 5 milestones. Again, we have some articles that go into great depth and other videos. So I'm going to just give you a light look through this, and then we'll get into the artwork, which is my favorite. But I want to make sure you have a foundation. So the 5 milestones are how you set up a book. They become like an outline. So here, the setup of a story would be, what's life been like leading up to the start of your book? You know, in a children's picture book, you've got 28 pages of story that you're aiming for. You've got about 700 words. So when I say the setup, I'm talking like 1 or 2 pages of your 28. Give your reader an idea of what life has been like before the second milestone, which is the inciting incident. What is it that's now happening in your story that is changing everything that's come before it? Right? I'm going to give you some examples following up, but this is storytelling 101, right? Every movie, every fiction story, even nonfiction stories, memoirs should follow this because the brain really engages with this kind of storytelling. All right, so you got the setup, what's life been like, so that we understand when the inciting incident comes, why it's such a big deal. that sends your character on some kind of journey. Now, that sounds like a big thing. It's not like they're actually having to go on an adventure. It might be to overcome the bully. It might be to find money to pay for the little dog they saw at the pet store, right? The journey is child friendly and child appropriate, but now they're on some kind of journey because something happened that changed it. Then we get the first slap, and slap is strong. We use that like in adult fiction and young adult fiction. We can call it an obstacle, but what it means is that you as an author are putting an obstacle in the way of what your character wants the most. So your character's on a journey and they have a desire and a drive and they're aiming for something, and you're going to put at least 3 obstacles in their way and allow them to overcome that obstacle. Why? Because again, TED Talk 1, your brain lights up when there's opportunity for life experience. So when your brain is recognizing that a character in front of you is having to overcome something, it lights up your brain, it releases adrenaline and endorphins to get your curiosity engaged, because what if there's something you could learn in this story for your own survival? So this is something you get to bring to kids. If you knew that, let us know. If you didn't, let us know. I'd love to know if you knew that the brain engages story because it's trying to gain life experience to know how to keep you alive. And it's doing that for kids too. It's powerful. So when we put slaps into our book, we're showing our brain that there's conflict, and therefore it wants to know, what is this character going to do in case I can learn something about what I would need to do if I'm in a situation like that. We're going to do that 3 times. We're going to get a second slap that's a little more intense than slap 1. And we're going to do a climax, which is the greatest slap, right? Where all hope seems lost for this character. Maybe this little kid has been scrapping up money and recycling cans, whatever, has finally got the money they need for the pet, and they're on the way, and they reach into their pocket and there's a hole and all their money is gone and they can't find it. And all hope seems lost for getting this dog, right? Again, I'm trying to show you how this can be done in a children's context. And then right? They have to overcome that in some way. Either they're going to find the money or get creative, or someone's going to help them out, or they're not. And they're going to learn to, check their pockets for holes before they put all their money. Whatever happens at the climax, whether the character really fails or succeeds, they've learned something and they're a little different than they were at the start of the story. So if you take this and make it a kind of outline for yourself, you'll have a draft to a book in no time. Now, let's quickly go through some of the pros, watching our time here. Okay, so Mo Willems, prolific children's writer, so well known. He's got a number of series. This one's Don't Let the Pigeon Stay Up Late. He engages the reader as part of the book. It's a lot of fun. So the caretaker of the pigeon is asking the reader to not let the pigeon stay up late. And so it's the reader's job to make sure that he goes to bed on time. So milestone 1, that setup, is that the reader is now in charge of pigeon and bedtime. Milestone 2, the inciting incident. Pigeon does not want to go to bed. So you've got a task. We're now on that, and he's in the way. Milestone 3 is really about the pigeon. He yawns. He's trying really, really hard to stay awake because he doesn't want to go to bed. And he's trying to convince the reader that he's not tired, but then he yawns. The yawn is the slap. That's an example of how something that simple can be the obstacle. Milestone 4, he yawns again, and he's kind of freaking out because he knows yawns means he's tired, but he's really trying to convince us he's not tired. And finally, by milestone 5, he cannot stop yawning. He's losing the stay awake battle. Everything is at risk. What's going to happen? You'll have to read to find out. All right, we've got Peanut Bird here. She's actually one of our self-publishing school students, our children's book school student. And this is her book, Fred the Super Friend. It's so cute. I was both the editor on it, and then I got to coach her through the process. And so he's a superintendent of an apartment. And so milestone 1 is that the setup, the city is full of noisy sounds, and he loves it. And he loves his job, and that's just what he does. Milestone 2, that inciting incident. What comes to change the day as it's been? Well, a winter storm comes. So he goes inside to get cozied up for the night and to prepare to weather through the storm. But milestone 3, the first official slap, Sutton the squirrel's bathtub floods and he gets a phone call. And he has to go up there, and Sutton cannot stay in his apartment. So he moves him into his own apartment to weather the storm. And just as they're going to cozy down for the night, milestone 4 happens. Rosie the raccoon's heater breaks, and she and her children cannot stay in the very cold apartment. So he moves them into their house too. And finally, milestone 5, this mouse family needs shelter. Will Fred the Super be able to take care of all of them during the storm? Again, you're going to have to read it to find out what happens. And finally, this is another one of our children's book school writers, Allison Collier. She's amazing. I'm Not Afraid of Losing Anymore. This is a series she's written specifically for families who have children on the autism spectrum, though, you know, any kid who struggles with losing would benefit from this book and her follow-up books. So milestone 1, the setup. The main character just really likes to win. Milestone 2, what's the inciting incident? Main character plays a board game with mom, loses. Milestone 3, his anger gets in the way when he loses and he explodes at mom. Now his goal is to keep his relationships intact and his anger is an obstacle to that. So mom has a conversation with him, tries to help him see the importance of controlling his anger. But milestone 4, he attempts to control his anger the next day and it's so hard. He gets angry again. And finally, milestone 5, this time another kid is raging. Will our main character be able to keep his cool? We don't know. You'll have to read it to find out. Okay, Chandler, were there comments about whether people knew about the brain having that kind of impact with story and life experience?
A lot of people said no. No. We had Claudia said that's fascinating. Mary says interesting. Candace says no, didn't know that. Bunch more coming in. And guys, let's give Marcy some love. I know we continue just to move more and more into the meat of this. Love seeing your guys' comments. And Sherry says, "Oh, Marcy, I am here for a reason."
Oh, yes, you are. Yes, you are. I know I like to pause on that part about the brain because that's some of my background. And it is fascinating that we can have such an impact on the brain of children and to be able to do that. Like it's far more than just putting out a good story and hoping to make money. It's really powerful. Okay, the truth about the 5 milestones. They are how we digest story. Not only do they work, but not using them doesn't work. If you don't remember stories you've read, it's probably because these were misapplied or it wasn't engaging enough. They make your writing pop. And using them can triple your writing speed because now you've got that map. Now, one real quick caveat is that some people write what we call quiet stories. Some people write concept books. So quiet stories don't really have the engaging plot line. They're more of a story that you would read to your kid before bedtime when you're not trying to get them all amped up. You're trying to get them to calm down and be quiet. Those don't tend to sell as well, but there's a place for them, right? So if you're going, oh man, shoot, I just had this really sweet quiet book, there's a place for you. And we help those authors too. We're talking about what makes them really engaging and high selling, right? But there's a place for all of those books. And as you market it well and you market it to the right audience and you target that well, your quiet books will sell as well. And same with concept books. That's teaching kids how to count and get through their alphabet. So there is a place for you. But if you're using these 5 milestones, you're really going to increase the engagement and the impact on the brain. Okay, now let's get into my favorite part, which is the illustration, finding affordable, high quality illustration. All great picture books have that high quality, engaging illustration. Now, what's important to know is that the illustration and the text should partner to tell the story completely. Neither one should tell the story fully without needing the other one. So if your text is telling 100% of the story and you wouldn't even need the artwork, you've said too much. If the artwork is telling all of the story and you don't need the text, then it needs to pull back. They need the two together to do a kind of dance. Now, there are wordless picture books. There are pictureless picture books. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about everyone, the majority who live in the middle. Having that symbiosis again between the two is what makes them so good. After the Fall is based on Humpty Dumpty, as you can see. The artwork is incredible and the story makes adults cry. It's a great example of just a good book. And then The Rainbow Fish, you've seen that around probably if you've had children, beautiful artwork. Okay, here's an example of that symbiosis I'm telling you about. Okay, so this is one of my books, Weirdo and Willie, and it's about bullying and learning how to love the differences within yourself and in others and find friendship in places you might not have expected. So you can see here on the left-hand page what the illustrator did, right? You can see clearly that there's invitations going out and there's going to be something coming up, which on the right-hand side, there's some text. Willie and Weirdo sat at their nicely prepared picnic bench and waited. I didn't have to use words on the left-hand side of the page. I could have said, Willie and Weirdo walked around, handing out invitations, hoping that all the bullies would come and become their friends. And maybe I had something like that, but he did such a great job just showing it that if I had any text there, I took it out because I thought it did a good enough job telling the story. It didn't need me anymore, but we still needed some words on the right-hand side to give us the context of the story. Another example from one of my books, Speranza's Sweater. This is a book where I wrote intentionally to have the artwork tell a different story than what was in the text. So this is that fast adopt story that I mentioned earlier. And as you can see, she's got threads hanging from her sweater. So really in the book itself, I don't talk about her sweater. Very, very little. It's something she gets to take from her birth home, and it follows her through foster homes and into adoption. It's got a fun twist at the end, but I don't talk about it in the book. You see it slowly unraveling as the story goes along, and then you see what happens with the threads of it at the very end. So again, an example of how you might know how you want the artwork to tell another story, like I did, and build that in with Illustrator notes for the artist to use, or you might not. And when you hire that illustrator, you're giving them an opportunity to bring their own storytelling to your book and add to it and make it even stronger. So how do I find these artists, and specifically ones that I love and within my budget? So I do a lot of research. You'll want to know your project details. What's the size you want? What format do you need? How many pages of artwork are you going to need? Where do you plan on publishing it? You're going to want to know those details as you're reaching out to artists so they can make a good informed decision when they decide to take on your project. Then you need to reach out. I love using Upwork.com, but you can also go on Instagram or Facebook or Fiverr.com and, search things, illustrators. There's hashtags that you can search, looking for an illustrator, whatever it might be. Recognize that those who've been in the traditional industry might expect advances and royalties, and those who are more freelancer, work for hire, are used to a flat rate payment. So when you're looking for artists and you're reaching out, like, keep in mind that you'll get a variety of quotes as you go higher up in the life experience or the professional experience. So will a quote go with it? I've never paid more than $500 using Upwork.com, where I post a job and people apply for it knowing my budget. And then as I teach in the school, there's a lot of things I do to compensate for that, to make sure that at the end of their time with me, there's huge value to their experience. I've had a number of illustrators who can live off their artwork because they started with me, and I employed some of those things that I do to give them promotion and continued business. So when I'm reaching out and I've put that job posting on Upwork.com, I will ask applicants to give me a quick sketch based on a synopsis. So all of these people for Turkules had the exact same words with which to give me a sketch, but they all gave me such different sketches. And I love to show this here, and I do it in school visits. I show this everywhere because it shows the uniqueness of each person and their skill. The same line of text, and yet there's all of this creativity out there. Now, some platforms will have you chart or pay for a sketch like that. Sometimes illustrators will do that as part of the application. You have to just understand the policy of wherever you're reaching out. But I love getting an idea of what they can bring to it. So in this case, I ended up choosing Megan, and the sketch she sent me is that top left one, Turkules. Now, I saw that and I was like, okay, kind of looks like a seagull, but I think if she can, give him a waddle, tone down the beak, we could end up with a turkey. And so she was coachable and teachable. She whipped out this Turkules, and you can see, like, the full page spreads that she did for this book are incredible. And Turkules is the one that was at that workshop that the agents did not acquire, that now is a fan favorite. Kids always tell me this is one of their favorite books of mine. This is another example of when I've reached out, and I chose Daniela here in this case, and she knew that it was loosely based on my son and his imagination. So she wanted a picture of him, and then she sent me all of these sketches. So when I talked about creative control earlier and that partnership with the illustrator, I loved this. Like, I got to choose from those 4 up there, and I chose 3. And then she sent me some profiles that she was thinking of. And now I've got, like, the most adorable book and book series, according to Corbin, and Bath Time Magic, where we live in his imagination. And you can just see the process. So she sent me sketches before she colored things in. I got to approve them or say, oh, could you add a turtle? I love turtles. Or could you do this or that? And then she'd send me the colored one, and we'd go through it, and I'd mostly approve it. But if there was anything I wanted to change, I would send that back. And we worked very collaboratively together. Daniela is one now who was living in Romania. I paid her $500 for this book. It was her first published book experience, and I promoted the heck out of her. I put her all over my book. I tell everyone about her. She now makes or charges at least $3,500 a book, and moved from Romania to London. So I can't even afford her anymore. But I love that not only am I developing as an author and as a published children's book writer, but I'm helping develop illustrators as well. And I'm learning that I need to include things in my contract, like, I get you at this price for life. So this is the final product, and Daniela, she was amazing, according to Corbin. Okay, so how I find the artists I love, right? I reach out, I hire them, and then I get going. And I've shown you some of the process real quick of how we do that. Again, in Children's Book School, we have templates, we have videos, we have everything you need to get through that process in a slower pace than I'm doing right now to get us through. Here's just some examples of some of our other children's book writers. We've got, this is, you know, a fraction of who's out there, but just such high quality work you can see right here. They're amazing. Okay, lesson 3, the one that I always feel like, but I love you enough to tell you. You're actually hurting our future and our kids by not putting your book out there. The myth is that I'm not good enough. Again, if that was you, drop that down there. I know some of you were saying that earlier. Or you know what? If that's something you want to overcome, put that down there. That's what I'd like to hear. Who here wants to overcome this myth that you think you're not good enough, especially after hearing this? You know, I'm going fast. I'm saying a lot of things you might think, I don't even understand half the language, or, oh, that seems overwhelming. You know, drop that down because it's important. I think when we speak it out, it loses some of its power, right? And then Chandler's got this thing where we say used to. I used to not be good enough, but today I'm choosing to believe I'm enough, and I'm stepping into that. So if you want to step into believing you're good enough, drop that down there for us, because here is the truth. Those 5 milestones will keep you on track. They will. They become an opportunity for you to get that rough draft, which leads to the second one. The rough draft should be rough. Rough. Speranza Sweater, my best-selling children's book on that foster child, was 2,000 words, the first draft, and it was highly traumatizing. There were sirens and handcuffs and all sorts of really traumatizing things, right? But I had to get it out. I had to let it come out the way it needed to. And then I went back and I began to sharpen it, and I got other people's feedback on it, and there were revisions and edits, and it became the book it is today, you know, 28 drafts later or whatever. And by drafts, I just mean like me going over it again and again and again. So don't judge yourself because what you put down feels like junk to you. Now you have something to work with. And that's far more than most people who are still just dreaming about it, okay? Any investment into yourself as an artist or a creator will improve the quality of the work you produce. I didn't get to that 7-year mark where my book was the example to all the other writers because I showed up and I just had all the charm. No, it was 7 years of investing into myself. There wasn't a children's book school then. It would have taken me 3 months instead of 7 years to have the same experience if I had had that to invest in. But when I did at my 7-year point, that's where things began to change for me. So as an artist and as a creator, investing in yourself, whether it's workshops, schools like ours, opportunities to grow yourself as an artist, you will begin to produce that high quality work. There are incredible and affordable illustrators. I've already shown you a few. Now, don't go after mine now because they've raised their prices, some of them. But again, we've got a whole Rolodex of illustrators that we recommend within the school, and we're happy to help you with that. And you know what? Believing you're not good enough is selfish. And I'm sorry to say that. I hate to say that. But the reality is it's true. It is a fear-based self-preservation thing that your brain is doing. It feels way better to tell yourself I'm not good enough than it is to step out in any level of bravery and just try it. But the thing is, choosing to live within that fear and within that doubt keeps your story and your message from getting into the world. I mean, what if I had hoarded these stories? You know, Speranza Sweater, I got an email from a mom one day who had read it to her 5-year-old, soon-to-be adopted foster daughter. And what she told me in that letter was that she was reading it and her daughter was saying, oh, Mama, that's me. That's me. And she kept pointing at the little girl. It was the first time she'd ever seen herself, her own version of a story reflected in a book. What if I'd kept that back because the first draft was 2,000 highly traumatizing words? Right? That little girl and little girls like her would not get to experience seeing themselves in a book. That's just one example. Weirdo and Willie is based on a childhood sort of traumatic experience I had with bullying. And Hercules is really about being good enough and being just right the way you are. This is me wrestling with my confusion and my self-doubts, but putting it into story because I believe that other people will relate to it. And if I'd held those back, then all those kids who now see themselves in the story wouldn't. And so that's why it's selfish. When we choose self-protection at the expense of putting our important stories and putting our voice out there, we're hindering the world. Think of books that have changed your life. What if that author in their fear had not put that book out? You would be whoever you were before that moment that you had some level of change. Johnny's an example of this. She's published a number of children's books. She's also one of our children's book school students. And here you see that publishing her books actually opened doors of opportunity for her to step into classrooms and to read and impact all of these kids. And that's what happens when we will choose to overcome those fears. Nelson Mandela says, may your choices reflect your hope and not your fears. That hangs above my desk. It's a filter for how I make decisions, because opportunities open to you when you choose hope, just like Johnny getting to share her books in these school. So why do so many children's authors fail? We've talked about them, right? You've already noted some of them. Not understanding the fundamentals, which now you do. Now you have a basis. Not choosing to have the discipline because of, right, no confidence. Not choosing to make time for the things that matter. I'm saying that no time is a belief system. It's not an actual reality. Generally, no support, not having community, not having people to come alongside and hold your hand, and not knowing the process. So then what are the 6 peaks of an unstoppable author? And if one of these really speaks to you and you're like, man, that is the thing I need to overcome those 6 peaks, I'd love for you to drop that down. Which one of these stands out to you as like, yes, that is what I need? Is it a firm grasp of story fundamentals? Like you've gotten a taste today and you really want to dig in and get that great engaging story? Is it having discipline that's on maximum overdrive? Is it confidence to know that your story rocks? Or having all the time you need to be able to work on that story? Is it the support galore, or every step you need to publish and sell that book? As those come in, Chandler, will you let me know where people are resonating?
Yeah, and I see we've got LaShawn says this is awesome, and a lot of people resonating with your story. Somebody says that would be a real tragedy. So powerful. This is awesome. I see Stephanie says, no understanding of the industry. I see, let's see. Brian says steps to publish and sell. That's most interesting. Shay says every step I need. Claudia says all of them. Yep. Hazel says support. Awesome. Sherry says perfect. All this is so true and helpful. Mm-hmm. Stephanie says the last 2 are big needs for me, which is awesome.
Yeah, love it. Thanks for sharing those. And thanks, you guys. Feel free to keep dropping those in. I'll have access to the chat a little bit and I'll go through. I'm going to hand it over to Chandler here in just a second. But I just want to recap for us, because what's so cool is that we've touched really on most of those peaks. Just touched. Obviously, we haven't been able to get into the time to get through each one in depth. But if you loved this, you'll love the other things that we offer in a variety of places. So lesson 1, we talked about traditional publishing versus self-publishing and why one might be for you versus the other. We talked about the storytelling formula that anyone can follow, the 5 milestones for getting an engaging, plot-driven story, and then how to find that illustrator, thinking through budget and some of the process to understand how do you get artwork to go and tell the story with your book. And finally, just the hard truth that living out of our fear and our self-protection actually hurts our future and our kids when we're not willing to put our voices and our books out there for them. So Chandler, I'm going to hand it to you from here, because this is where we get to talk about something fun.
This is awesome. So, I mean, one of the biggest questions that we get often, and we got these for years, even before we had the children's book school, it's like, hey, this is really, really helpful. Will this apply for my genre, or for the age group that I'm writing for, or for children's picture books, or kind of mid-level children's books? Like, will this apply to me? And can you just help me implement this? And the answer is yes. So that's why we created Children's Book School. And in fact, actually now the Children's Book School 2.0. All right, so Children's Book School and self-publishing school as a whole, we exist to help people write and publish, in this case, high-quality books, again, that children love to read and parents are proud to buy. Now, what this looks like, I always like to say kind of at a high level, it's a mix of Jillian Michaels and Indiana Jones, and that's blazing the trail. So we're going to save you time in the process. We're going to save you money in the process. We're going to save you likely hundreds of hours in the process, and all sorts of money on illustrators, cover designers, all that good stuff. We're also going to help you create a quality and more marketable children's book. And then Jillian Michaels, we're going to hold you accountable. to keep moving through the process, right? Because obviously if you're on this webinar, you've stayed all the way to the end. This book's important to you. This message is important to you, but there's probably a reason why it's not been written yet, or if it's been written, maybe it's not been published, or if it's been published, maybe it's not selling as well as you'd like it to. And that's because you need that kind of 1-2 punch, the accountability to keep moving. But most importantly, like a lot of you said in the chat here, the step-by-step process to show you the path. So what this looks like, you're going to get access to the step-by-step online education curriculum. This is designed by Marcy to go from blank page to published in as short as 90 days. You're going to get paired up with one of our coaches, our children's book specific coaches. You're going to get access to literally hundreds of group coaching calls over the next year as you work through this next year. As you work through this children's book. So I know my girlfriend's working through this process right now, and she's benefited just tremendously from not only the one-on-one coaching, but also the group coaching. And there's nothing like popping into a Zoom room and getting help through the process. Also, a lot of people are asking, hey, links for illustrators and all that stuff. And we've got what we call the book production partners. These are folks that we've negotiated exclusive discounts with. It's going to save you a ton of money in the process, and then you'll be a part of our community as well. So that's kind of a big picture overview of what this looks like. This is a proven process. We've had thousands of students in over 65 countries, lots of children's book published. I know that Marcy showed multiple examples kind of throughout the presentation. We've got lots of examples of successful students. And so this process works if you work. And so the next step is if this is something that you're interested in, you want to learn more about and see if this is a fit, the next step is to book a call. Okay, I'm going to give you the link in just 1 minute. Spots are limited on a first come, first serve basis. So it'll make sure you're a fit before you book a call. But basically what we've done is we've set aside time over the next 48 hours to speak with you personally about your book and about how you can implement what you've just learned. So you're going to book a call with one of the experts on my team. So these are folks who have helped hundreds, in some cases, thousands of folks through this process. And they're going to walk you through your goals for your book, your challenges with your book, and your next steps. So this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. Coming off of this webinar to implementing and getting your book done is on this call, okay? I've covered the cost of this phone call for you. All you have to do is book a call and then show up for that call. All right, now quick disclaimer before I give you the link to book a call, please only book a call if you're serious about getting your book done now. So if this is something that's a priority for you, it's something that's it's a now thing, not a maybe someday thing. Also, if you're serious about writing a great book that helps people, you have high integrity, and then lastly, you're someone who's serious about investing in yourself and investing in your book. Okay, so if all those things can be said about you, all you have to do is head on over to self-publishingschool.com/children and go ahead and book a call on that page. All right, so go ahead and click the link right now. If you're on your way to booking a call, if you've already booked a call, comment in the chat, I booked a call. Okay, so go to self-publishingschool.com/children and go ahead and book a call at that link. And like I said, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road in implementing and moving forward with what you just learned. Now, a couple things as you do that, and I see we've already got folks booking a call, which is just awesome. So a couple things. So first off, if you're one of the first 20 students to book a call and to enroll in the Children's Book School, you're going to get access to a half-day workshop, which this is unbelievably powerful. That's going to help you make progress on your book. All right. Now, also, you're going to be a part of, as one of the founding members, part of funding a library through the Fund a Library initiative. So as one of the founding members of the Children's Book School, you'll get access to that, or you'll be a founding member for that. So you'll know that by joining, you've helped build a library for children in a third world country, which is just amazing. Now, this process is so easy to follow that kids can do it, and kids have done it. So if you're thinking about writing books with your kids, and not just writing a book for kids, then this could be a really, really great fit. And so this is one of our students, just awesome. And so Anita Oman is her mom, and this is Elena, and she's just done an amazing job writing a book advocating against bullying and donating all those book proceeds to a school project to build a gym. We also have Emma Sumner, who's got an episode coming out on the podcast here soon about writing a children's book. Just so many great examples. You can see this other example as well by Aiden. It's such a cool book, such a cool message. And it's just me and my afro. And just, I mean, there's nothing that you can put a price on when it comes to helping kids feel comfortable in their own skin. Right? And helping kids express themselves, build confidence, all those things. So what we're going to do now, if you haven't already, go to self-publishingschool.com/children. And I want to hear from everyone here. So if you're on your way to booking a call, or if you just booked a call, comment in the chat and just say, I booked a call. Okay, so go ahead and comment in the chat if you've booked a call. We're also going to open it up for just a couple minutes for some Q&A. So with Marcy here. So if you have any questions, feel free to also add those questions in the chat. We won't be able to get to every question, but we will be able to work through a few questions here. Now, super important, I'll mention this as we kind of transition, is that we're super picky about who we work with. So just know that when you book this call, and I do believe that booking this call is the best next step to making progress on your children's book, right? And to really, I think for me, when I'm giving presentations like this, I always judge kind of me as the presenter as like, my measure of success is, do the people in attendance implement what they've learned, right? So 90 days from now, are they going to look back and say, hey, that was a defining moment. That was a moment that changed everything. Or was it, hey, that was really inspiring, but then shoot, I didn't do anything with it, right? And so I think that's also for you as an attendee, that's your measure of success, right? Is do you implement what you've just learned? And I don't want this to be a webinar that you come to, that you get inspired and you've got good notes and all those things, but then you don't do anything with it, right? I want this to be a moment in time where you look back, kind of like Marcy mentioned at the very beginning of her presentation, is that kind of that moment in time where she said, hey, I'm going to invest in myself and I'm going to invest in this book, and I'm going to implement. Right. And I'm gonna take what I'm learning, and I'm gonna take this inspiration, I'm gonna bottle it up and make consistent progress on my book. And that's what Marcy's done. That's what so many other people have done through Children's Book School, is commit to those books and commit to taking action on those books. Okay, so I see Simon says I booked a call. Alicia's booked a call. Michelle says how cool. Mary says will do. Awesome. We got more folks booking calls. If you're on your way to booking a call, or if you just booked a call, comment in the chat. I booked a call. Like I said, if you're one of the first 20 folks to enroll in the program, you'll get access to the half-day workshop, which is unbelievably powerful. We've got all new updated curriculum. So, and we're looking forward to kind of bridging this with that call, bridging this with helping you make consistent progress on your book. And we've got some really, really great content in that program, all new, updated, revised. We've got I think we're almost finished creating a book dummy so that you can use for your books. It's going to save you a lot of time. We've got a book outline template. We got other tools and resources that will be added real soon. I see Fleur says my booking is confirmed. I've so enjoyed the seminar. I admire you both greatly for what you're doing. Bravo from New York. Awesome. Thank you, Fleur. I see Joan says I've booked a call. Michelle says I'm not sure what to write right now. That's why I just keep reading other children's books. So I'd be curious your perspective on that, Marcy. How do you help, or how do we help folks who are like, hey, I'm not quite sure what I want to write about?
Yeah, we have an initial call that is a full hour where you can process through that. So wherever you are, like you've already written and now you're looking for an editor or an illustrator, we'll start with you there. But for someone who comes saying, I just know I want to impact kids and I have something inside of me, I don't know what to pick. That's something that we love to kind of tease out of you and work through. For example, Michelle, when I saw that, I thought, one thing that I like to do is go back to my own childhood stories and think, okay, is there a story that if I could rewrite it, I would, and how would I rewrite it? So Weirdo and Willie was based on an example of me playing softball in grade 4, and through a variety of circumstances, all of the kids began to chant NARC at me, which might give you an example of where I was raised. So narc, and I was this just timid, shy girl. And so as an adult, I was like, oh man, I would rewrite that story and a narc would show up. It would be some creature that would come and eat all the chanters, and then we'd be best friends and live happily ever after. So version 1 was a little bit, gruesome, but I felt really good. And then as the book progressed, there's no baseball in the story, there's no narc in the story, but out of that came a story of my own wrestling with that bullying moment back then. And the story Weirdo and Willie is the kids are calling Willie a weirdo, and a weirdo shows up and he wants to play. It's like journey with it. So I love to take, I'll start there with writers. Like, do you have a story that when you go back to like, oh, I would rewrite this, start there? Or fractured fairy tales, right? Like Hercules. On Hercules. So I took a kind of a story that exists and said, how can I break it up and mix it up with something totally unexpected like a turkey and create a whole new version? So I'll just sit down and think of ideas that come out with those, and whichever one feels the most exciting, I just play with it. I take out that outline of the 5 milestones and go, okay, what can I do to this character in this setting, and do I like it?
That's so great. Wow. What a great example. I see we've got Hazel says booked. Manju says book to call. Martin says, thank you, Marcy. Very insightful.
You're welcome.
I see we've got Sherry says, I booked a call. That's awesome. Aisha says, I booked a call. Can't wait. That's awesome. This is so exciting, guys. We got so many people kickstarting their children's books. And whether you've already started, there's a draft that's been sitting on your shelf for years, or maybe you're like some people who they've got multiple drafts and multiple children's books that they just maybe wrote a long time ago and just put them on the shelf because they didn't have those fundamentals, right, of what Marcy was talking about, either the support galore or the steps or the story fundamentals or all those things. I would just really encourage you to kind of take that leap, book a call with the team, and let's take that from an idea or from a draft to something that's published that you're proud of. And I know for me personally, like when I decided to write and publish my very first book, it's constantly a day that I look back to as like that was the day that changed everything. It's writing and publishing that book. We always say it's kind of like this key that opens this door to Narnia. It's this, if you're familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia, it's like they just discover this key that opens this door to this cupboard, right? This magical world of Narnia that they didn't previously know existed. Well, for us, or for me, that's, it's your book is the key that opens that door to kind of all of these opportunities that exist for published authors, right? Marcy doing a couple of TEDx talks, like all these things that just kind of keep snowballing and stacking, and just it just one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing, and in the process is what we call leverage impact, which is the ability to impact hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of lives through your book, right? And we believe that books change lives, and I think that's just couldn't be more present than in children's books, because it's like you're literally shaping the future of kids, which are the future of our countries and of our worlds, and it's just such powerful and meaningful work. And so we've got time for maybe one, maybe two more questions. I see Claudia says, I booked a call. That's awesome. Love it. Shay says, fantastic presentation. Thank you. Awesome. Ashley's asking about a ballpark on costs for the children's book school. So yeah, pricing and details, full details on our website. And this is something that on the call, we'll definitely talk about that with you of, if you're a fit and if you qualify to work with us, we'll chat through what that looks like. Just to kind of give you a general ballpark, it's typically a few $1,000s. And so that's kind of for the full thing, the full help of the coach, the group coaching. I'm sorry about that. We got somebody's at the door. So all those things is kind of included in this package. And I always say it's like it's think of it like a school, right? Think of it like tuition that you would pay to your university. Except for a lot of folks, it's more effective and make it. And I look at it in 3 ways. I look at it as we're going to save you probably hundreds of hours in the process. So if you value your time at say $20 an hour, well then that's a lot of money and your time back, right? But then also we're going to save you money, hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars in the process. And then thirdly, we're going to help you write a better book that sells better, right? So that's kind of when I look at kind of the cost benefit of going through the program. That's what I look at. Final couple things here. I see Preeti says booked. Awesome. Yeah, Michelle, book a call with the team. We'd love to chat with you about your book. Alicia says, Marcy Chandler, thank you for a great webinar. Awesome. Hey, final call for questions, guys. Final call to book a call. Ashley says, makes sense. Thank you. Awesome. So, hey, thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, go to self-publishingschool.com/children. Book a call right there. Comment in the chat. I booked a call and let's give Marcy some love. This was an incredibly helpful presentation. So I always like to say, if you feel like this was a good use of 60 minutes of your time, then I'll make a bold promise and say that this 45-minute call will be even more helpful because there's nothing like getting one-on-one feedback, one-on-one accountability, and next steps specific to your book, right? Because that's the one thing we can't do in a setting like this is speak specifically to you and answer your specific questions on a longer timeline than just the Q&A here. So I see Sherry says, can hardly wait to get started. We got lots of love for Marcy in the chat. I'd love to pass it back to you, Marcy. Final encouragement or kind of parting thoughts for folks?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things is that when I joined as a children's writer to your adult nonfiction program, I took my adult nonfiction book, the things I learned, and translated it over and just had to figure it out. And what I love now is that you and I together have been able to create something that takes everyone through those 6 mountain peaks, all of them. And what took me essentially 8 years, we now teach people to do in 90 days or less. So if you think of it like by March, if you start right away by March, you're having that impact. You have the key to Narnia in March. If you can start to put a frame on it and imagine that. I remember you saying that, Chandler, with the adult nonfiction program and thinking, really, 90 days from now? And 100%, it was 88 days later that I was holding the key. And I was immediately invited to be a speaker on a stage. So a month after that book published, I was already speaking, selling my book. It was wild because 4 months before that, I was still like, am I good enough? Right. And you gave me the tools I needed. And so I love that now you've seen and we've seen the value that children's book writers bring to the industry and to the world as a whole. And so now we've got all of those elements, the confidence you need, because we believe in you and for you, and you can borrow that until you believe it yourself. We're going to help you find that discipline, the time, give you all of the steps. And like he said, you can save the money, the time, the energy, have a book out by March or sooner instead of just having it as a dream that never really comes true, because again, that fear gets in the way, the fear of the expense, the fear of what if you try it and fail, right? The fear of whatever keeps us from getting our stories out there. So think of it that way. 3 months from now, you could be holding the keys to Narnia because we do take you through all of those peaks.
That's amazing. Well, awesome, guys. Hey, thank you so much for being so attentive, being so engaged, and for staying all the way to the end of this presentation. We appreciate it, and we look forward to helping you implement, right? Let's transfer this inspiration to implementation, and it all starts with booking a call with the team, and hopefully we'll be able to help you through Children's Book School, okay? So if you haven't already, before I close down the webinar, because we'll all get kind of booted out here, click the link so that you at least have it open in a new tab where you can book a call, or go to self-publishingschool.com/children. If you've booked a call and you haven't commented yet, comment in the chat and just say, I booked a call. Let us know. Once again, huge shout out to Marcy. If you want some more info and kind of in a different setting, I dropped the link earlier. You can check out her podcast interview on the Self-Publishing School podcast. Also, some really good info there. So thank you, Marcy, and thank you everyone for showing up, and we'll see you next time.